Perfect. Hello, welcome. Welcome, everybody, to our second live chat. We'll give people a few minutes to join here, make sure everything is working properly. And yeah, for those of you joining, I think while people are still coming in, we will go ahead and start off with a trivia question again, like we did last time before we kick this off. So I was going to ask everybody, how many photos can our research cameras take before they run out of battery or camera space, card space? So if people could answer that question, just to make sure this is working. Hi, Matt. Ishmael. So we're asking again, how many pictures can stay on a camera before it runs out of battery or card space? And I know Koustubh is going to talk a little bit about these cameras later on, but just to give a little overview, these cameras are placed in the field. They detect motion, so nobody has to be there to actually push the button. And it will, the infrared sensor will notice motion that goes by, and it takes a picture about every half second. So a little bit of a math lesson. If a snow leopard, we hope, walks by and it takes about 10 seconds, we should get about 20 photos of that snow leopard. So again, as people are joining, let me know how many photos you think they can take. Let's see, thousands.
I like Raina's answer. Pretty accurate.
Yes, exactly. Are there any other guesses before we officially get started? How many photos can a snow leopard research camera hold? Let's see. 20,000, getting there, getting closer, warmer.
But that's Liz. That's cheating.
All right. I think people are getting at least in the thousands, which is great. I think, Koustubh, do you want to reveal our answer for our first question?
So, yeah, I mean, as surprising as it may sound, these cameras can take up to 60,000 pictures. It does depend on the ambient temperature, the richness of content on the picture as well, because content which is rich with a lot of variation, they're slightly higher in memory size as well. So, but yeah, anywhere between 60,000 pictures can pretty easily go on these camera traps. So imagine they're like our eyes in the mountains while we're nicely in the warmth of our homes.
I love that. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get officially started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us at our second live chat. My name is Marissa Naranjan, and I'm joined here today by Koustubh Sharma, my wonderful colleague and dear friend. And we want to start off again by saying that we hope this finds everybody healthy and well. We also want to wish you a happy Earth Day. It's a special Earth Day today. It's the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day celebration that took place back in 1970. And I've been thinking a lot recently about people kind of coming together for a cause and the power of that collective energy. And now in the midst of our global situation currently, we find ourselves being asked to come together by staying apart. And while that can feel overwhelming and isolating, it's still like such a great power in that collective movement as we sort of come together, to fight this pandemic. And so I'm grateful for technology in that as well, for helping us stay connected during this time, which is actually a great segue into introducing you to Dr. Koustubh Sharma, who's here today with us. So I I'm thrilled to be sharing the screen with him. Koustubh has been involved in active research in wildlife conservation for 17 years and obtained his PhD in wildlife zoology from the University of Mumbai in 2006. After pursuing his master's degree in physics in 2001, he's worked with the Snow Leopard Trust as a Senior Regional Ecologist since 2007, and since 2014 has taken additional charge of the International Coordinator of the Global Snow Leopard and Ecosystems Protection Program. Try to say that quickly. Acronym is GSLEP. As our Senior Regional Ecologist, Koustubh assists us in field research, data analysis, conservation, and training programs across several countries, and his academic interests lie in quantitative ecology. And if you're looking at him thinking, this guy looks familiar to me, it's because you may have seen him in our other wonderful colleague Kuban in the popular Microsoft AI ads that have been circulating that also feature Common. So if you want Koustubh's autograph, drop us a note below and we'll try to see if we can make that happen. Today's live chat topic is actually technology, and Koustubh was going to discuss the technology, how we use technology to better answer questions surrounding snow leopard ecology. So again, like last time, if you guys weren't able to join us, just to give you a little bit of a framework of how this will go. As Koustubh is talking, he's going to give a short presentation. Please feel free to ask questions below in the comment section. And as soon as he's finished with that presentation, we'll go through and answer as many as we can. So if he says something that inspires you, which he certainly will, or just something that you want a little bit more information of, please let us know in the comments and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So I'm going to turn things over to who you're really here to hear, listen to, Koustubh.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you very much for that flattering introduction. I really hope I meet even half of those expectations that you've set. Okay, let me just try to fiddle with a little technology here while I try to share my screen. Please bear with me for a few seconds. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Hold on. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Good morning to those from the other part of the world, and good evening from a beautiful Bishkek. I really, truly hope you're all doing well and staying safe amidst these unprecedented times. For those of you who may not know, that little star you see, that's where Bishkek is. It's in Central Asia. It's one of the countries, Kyrgyzstan. It's Kyrgyzstan's capital, and Kyrgyzstan is one of those countries which has the snow leopard. Like many of you, I'm also staying and working from home. Believe it or not, this is my 29th day at home, and I can say one thing for sure. Social distancing and lockdowns are not easy. One has to really be privileged enough to have a home, food, resources, friends, and family to be able to follow social distancing to break the spread of a deadly virus. Not to mention have a profession where you can manage to work from home while our health workers, law enforcement agencies, essential service providers still have to go out and do their duties despite all the risks. I think we're lucky to be living in the information age. It is no less than a miracle that despite lockdowns, teachers are still able to continue the daunting task of shaping the next generation. It is it's technology that is empowering scientists and policymakers use collective wisdom and to share lessons from each other in fighting this pandemic at multiple fronts. As you could have guessed, the Snow Leopard Trust works with snow leopards. No surprise there. And it works with the ecosystems that include people who share their spaces with wildlife. With its python-like tail, snowshoe-like paws, a coat that doubles into an invisibility cloak, I think snow leopard is perhaps one of the most charismatic of the big cats. And yes, I am a little biased, so please forgive me for that. For decades, scientists have been interested in the species, but you'll be surprised that it is only now, around the second decade of the 21st century, that we are beginning to decode some of the mysteries of the snow leopard's lives, and we need to know them to be able to conserve them better. A very well-known snow leopard biologist very amusingly wrote about 20 years ago that he stopped trying to follow snow leopards using radio signals because he figured he was ending up recording not the snow leopards, but his own home range. I hear him. And how can a human ever compete with the snow leopard and its ability to navigate through those canyons, ridge lines, and frozen rocks? It is only technology, with the technology's advent, when satellite-based GPS telemetry devices, small enough to be worn by a snow leopard, came into existence, that we've managed to learn that, just for an example, a male snow leopard may have a range which could be roughly as big as Manhattan, Jersey, and Queens put together. So with these oligarchs of these mountains covering such vast expanses, how can you really imagine to follow a snow leopard in those rugged mountains on foot? Whether it's the prime minister of a country or an Uber driver, typically one of the first questions they would ask if they get to know you're working with snow leopards is, how many are there? Now, as ironical as it may sound, we can at best only guess how many snow leopards are out there in the wild. For a species with such large homes, it is not unusual for them to interface with human populations. But even then, only a handful of people who live in those habitats have actually seen it. People hear the calls, they see the footprints in snow, they lose livestock in the mountains often, but don't get to see the snow leopards, which is why it's aptly also known as the ghost of the mountain. Now imagine you can't see an animal. How do you try to even get to count it? And what do? We use technology support again. Rapid developments have taken place in two parallel technologies. One, development of digital camera traps, and the other, conservation genetics. Thankfully, snow leopards do have coats that make it possible to identify them as individuals. Similarly, they leave genetic material in spoors, hair, and urine that can be used to identify them as individuals using genetics. Admittedly, both methods have their limitations. For example, with poor quality pictures, snow leopards can be easily misidentified. And similarly, analysis of genetic data using certain methods that have been prevalent has reported its own shortcomings in identifying individuals. Some of you may have seen the Microsoft advertisement that Marissa mentioned about, which showcases how artificial intelligence is helping detect snow leopards from tens of thousands of photographs. As we speak, geneticists are developing snow leopard genome to minimize errors in identifying snow leopards from degraded DNA. Similarly, engineers are developing machine learning algorithms to identify individuals based on coat patterns. Technology is like species. It is constantly evolving and improving. It is helping evolve innovative means not just to study and conserve the species, but also build awareness around it. For instance, some of you might recollect one snow leopard named Ulin from Mongolia challenged no less than 500,000 people across the world to compete with it in a 10-day-long challenge last October through Adidas Runtastic. And this was possible only because of technological advancements in our ability to understand their movement and their the behavior. So all that is great, but I would like to end with a quote from historian Christian Louis Lange, who once said that technology is a useful servant but a dangerous master. Balancing technological innovation with ethics and egalities is and should always be paramount, especially in the field of biodiversity conservation, where humans are an integral part of the system. Okay, so with that, I'd like to stop here, and let's hope Okay, yep, great. Let me bring Marissa back into the stream, hide my screen. And if you have any questions, we are here to try and answer. But please know that there will be a few questions which we may not have the answers to, but we promise to find the best answers and get to you.
That sounds great. Thank you, Koustubh. I always learn something new. I said that last time too, but every time I listen, I feel like I pick up new exciting information of the work that we do. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today. I see some also familiar names. Pascal from La Passerelle, one of our partners in France. Hello to you. Sagar, thank you for your images, some that were shared today. I see a question from James asking if we report data of sightings to ensure parks are preserved, which I thought was a great sort of segue into how we use this data to kind of inform our partners in country, both at a community landscape, but also a bigger kind of political landscape, and was wondering if you could talk about that, Koustubh.
Yeah, so well, as you all will appreciate, with an endangered species which is relatively high in demand for illegal wildlife trade, there are several sensitivities involved, and which is one of the reasons why we work very carefully in collaboration with the authorities who manage these areas and with communities which manage these areas. So yes, we do have very close collaborations where information about these sightings, these data about individuals, their number, their distribution, their behavior, eventually helps protection policies and conservation on the ground. So I believe if I got the question right, is that what James asking, Marissa?
Yeah, I think that's okay. Great. Yeah.
Sorry.
James, if you have a follow-up, please let us know, but that was wonderful. Let's see here. Seeing if there's any other questions that come through. I know one about, wondering too, with the collars you talked a little bit about, Koustubh, how long do those stay on a cat and how do we get them back once they're done collecting data?
Yeah, so these collars are like from the James Bond movie. They're super special devices which are equipped with a programmable drop-off. We typically, our scientists typically program them to drop off at around 18 months after deployment. And all it does is after 18 months, there is a little device which makes a little click and the collar falls off. And almost all instances, we've been able to get those collars back. A couple of instances where for some reason the collar may have been destroyed, but the good thing is these collars transmit data in real time. So we are almost in real time able to monitor these animals and use that data to improve our understanding and information.
That's great. Let's see. Jenna was wondering how many camera traps we do have out there. And I might add, what countries are we currently deploying trap camera research in?
Yeah, so I can speak from two platforms here. Let me start with the Snow Leopard Trust. And of course, the Snow Leopard Trust has 5 country partners. And in each country, we are deploying camera traps. I think the number varies between around 60 in a few countries to about 100 in others. So we can say we are in these 5 countries, there are at least 50 to 100 cameras being deployed at the minimum. But talking from the GSLEP platform, it's very heartening to report that about 3 years ago, we initiated this very ambitious program on the instruction of the governments of the Snow Leopard Range countries to help come up with a snow leopard number. We call the program PAWS, which stands for Population Assessment for the World's Snow Leopards. And this program has brought together a formidable group of statisticians, scientists, ecologists, to create frameworks to be able to do camera trapping and genetics-based surveys out in the field. And if you start counting all of these, then we are talking about a few thousand cameras being deployed every year in different locations along a certain design to be able to inform us how many snow leopards are there in the next few years' time.
That's great. How do we choose the best spots for a camera trap?
So let me put it this way. Now, we are talking on Facebook. Snow leopards are solitary animals. They need to talk to each other. One male, for example, might want to send out a message, I'm looking for a girlfriend. Another snow leopard might say, well, this is my area, stay out of it. Or a female might say, stop bothering me, I have little babies with me. How does a snow leopard communicate when they don't get to meet each other so often because them being solitary, very few interactions? So what we call as a scrapebook site, not a Facebook wall post, but a scrapebook wall post, are those locations where snow leopards typically leave the scent markings. They make these little scrapes, and these scrapes are made in very identifiable specific locations, certain kind of habitats. So our field teams are trained enough, have a lot of experience, who find those scrapebook sites and set up cameras in a way that the snow leopard is able to get its selfies taken effectively. So scrapebook sites help us get snow leopard selfies, which is how we set up these cameras.
Great. Yeah, we've had some great photos, and Koustubh showed a couple of them, but you'll see as they're kind of setting it up, it's the researcher will kind of go and like actually smell the rocks and like see what they can detect, and then there's a picture of setting up the trap camera, and then kind of walking by to test it, and then also the snow leopard will walk by in the same frame a few days later. So it is quite the process. That's a lot of sniffing and adjusting and making sure you get it just right, and kind of trial and error, right, moving things around as you need to. Let's see. This is an interesting one from Ishmael, and we initially spoke about numbers. Do you think it's easier to have a specific number to raise more awareness about snow leopards, similar to the 1411, like tigers left? It's a great question, and it is one that we get a lot about sort of monitoring this and how do we actually figure out ways to get solid numbers. Koustubh, what do you think about that?
So let's be honest about it. We need to know what we have in our pocket, how many candies we have in our pocket if we want to make sure we are able to save our candies, right? And here again, snow leopards are nature's candies, right? We need to know how many there are. So that's only how we will be able to work protection around them. So these numbers serve multiple purposes. At one level, they help us know what we have, number one. On the other level, as Ismail rightly says, they help build campaigns around them, and they help build public awareness and public support around them. So I think these numbers do play a very powerful role. And I don't know where I had read it many years ago, but you might speak English, you might speak Hindi, you might speak Chinese, but 2 + 2 will be 4 in all languages, right? The fact is, mathematics is a universal language, and it really helps convey messages very, very powerfully. So I think there is a lot more than just knowing what we have to these numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, Amanda was wondering, how often do snow leopards, such as the dude, and the dude was a large snow leopard that we followed as part of our long-term ecological study that started in 2008 in Mongolia. How often do leopards destroy our cameras? And when destroyed, do we replace them at the same location or just move to the next location as planned? So how often do we lose cameras in the field, Koustubh?
So surprisingly, snow leopards are very research friendly, at least camera friendly animals. They don't destroy it too much. We've really had a handful, and I can count less than 10 instances where we've lost cameras to snow leopards. Out of them, most have been cubs, kind of fiddling and pushing them aside. We mostly lose cameras to people who wouldn't want to be photographed. We lose cameras to bears who don't seem to like these new structures or who are pretty more inquisitive. We do lose cameras to avalanches and landslides, and then of course theft. So there are times we lose cameras to theft as well. But yeah, for some reason, I think snow leopards seem to love their selfies taken. I think that's how I'd like to consider it.
Yeah. There is one great series we'll try to maybe find and show, but it is of like the Gobi bear. I think the bear seems to be the ones that really get into it. So it's like this camera, and then you kind of see the bear walk by, and then the bear's mouth like getting closer, and then it's just that was it. But we did recover the camera card later, so we're able to find that data. But let's see, this is a great question too. Do you get photos of other rare cats like Pallas cat or Eurasian Himalayan lynxes when camera trapping for snow leopards? I think this is a really great way to talk about how we sort of share that data across the board.
Absolutely, Marissa. That's a great question. In fact, one of the reasons why the Microsoft tool that we mentioned briefly about is so valuable is its ability to evolve and be trained to identify a lot of what we may call as bycatch. Now, you do get to encounter Pallas cat, lynx, ibex, sometimes birds and species that have never been recorded in some areas. So we've discovered few species distributions as well. Not to mention some remarkable sequences where leopard and snow leopard have been photographed on the same camera, not just the same altitude, but actually the same location. So we do get a lot of these other species captured on cameras, and we try to maintain a database of these, what we may call as bycatch. But again, priority wise, they do take a second priority, which is why tools such as the one I just mentioned can become very, very powerful allies in helping us scan, sort, and use these data sets for various other analysis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, with that too, because we have the expertise in the field, like anytime we can share those resources with other groups and partner with other groups to not, replicate the same study twice if we're already there and have cameras employed there, like anytime we can share that data with other groups as a, collective conservation effort. I think that's one thing that the Snow Leopard Trust really excels at. And I appreciate that, collaboration, in the species as a whole in that ecosystem. Let's see here. Another one. Somebody asking about Zahir about, is it true that the snow leopard's tail is equal to its body length? And it is indeed.
It is. I mean, imagine you'll be basically carrying a huge, a warmer, a neck warmer with you all the time. Yeah. So snow leopards do carry their tail, which is almost as long as their body.
Cheryl was wondering, have you caught a male and female snow leopards and their cubs together at the same
camera traps?
Maybe, I guess, yeah, maybe either way. What is our, what have we learned about, denning females and females with cubs?
Yeah, so snow leopards are experts at hiding, right? Experts at not becoming visible. and there would be no way to find a snow leopard den unless you either chance upon one or you are able to track individuals systematically through telemetry. So our scientists have been able to understand the denning priorities, the denning behavior of females, and then followed that with the whole process of raising cubs until dispersal. And all of that has only become possible with a combination of technological tools such as telemetry, which we mentioned, and camera trapping, which we also discussed about. So so that's what we know. We have seen male, female snow leopards on camera trap. In fact, there's a slightly embarrassing and a hilarious story around it, if you want me to say. So in the Kyrgyz Snow Leopard Trust office, there's a wall of fame which has snow leopards identified as individuals and their pictures pasted. And one of them, for some reason, some volunteer named it Koustubh. Fair enough. A few days later, I go and see that they've made it a female. I'm like, how do you know it's a female? Maybe you're not you're mistaken. She said, no, we saw it mating in front of a camera trap. And I'm like, all right, the first time ever we see a snow leopard mating in front of a camera trap, and that happens to be this one snow leopard which was named Koustubh. So anyway, yes, so we do sometimes see these get these incredible behavioral insights about snow leopards as well. But yeah, so that's where I think these cats have. We've been able to learn a lot about these snow leopards through camera traps and telemetry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, Elizabeth Brill. Hi, Elizabeth. Was wondering, during this time when it's so difficult for researchers to travel to certain research sites, what proportion of this data collection is still happening?
That's again a very good question. So thankfully, a lot of our field work had taken place just before it became impossible to travel. And as we speak, most of our camera traps are out there in the field collecting data for us while we are at homes. Number one, we have animals on collars which are transmitting data constantly as well. So those bodies of work which do not require us to be physically present and where we can leave those cameras out in the field for many months, and imagine 50,000 pictures, up to 6-8 months, the cameras don't stop working. I think that's the level of support our camera traps do end up providing us, and that's the kind of data which is continuing to get collected even now.
Yeah, and we just started a series that's on our social media channels as well as on our blog on our website, snowleopard.org, that talks about, we're kind of featuring different team members across the range and what they're doing now. And it's a really beautiful series just about sort of all the other aspects of research that maybe aren't involved being directly in the field that people can do safely from home. And so I really encourage you to check that out as well if you want to get a little glimpse into sort of what our field teams are doing now. So that's, yeah, again, on our social media channels, Instagram, as well as our website. Let's see. And you might have mentioned this, Koustubh, but just in case people missed the beginning, what is the average home range size of snow leopards, and do those ranges of male and female overlap often?
Yeah. So for a female, roughly anywhere between 80 to 100 square kilometers. Males have larger home ranges, let's say above 100 to 250, sometimes even 300 square kilometers. And then we have those individuals who are probably, we suspect they are probably in lookout for home ranges. We can call them floaters, we can call them dispersers or whatever. So yeah, so anywhere between 80 square kilometers to a few hundred square kilometers is how our home range can vary. What's important to know here is that there are many factors which we believe affect the range and the range sizes, and it is likely that with a higher density of snow leopards, there is a possibility maybe the ranges might shrink. But as of now, whatever data we have, I think this is what we can say.
Yeah. I know it's great, and it's information that we are learning more about every day, for sure. See, Shaz was wondering, oh, thank you so much. I'm glad that this is brightening up a day. It's definitely brightening up my day as well, to be here all together. So they were wondering, I'm curious about how snow leopard conservation transcends international borders, especially considering a very sensitive border that goes across one of its ranges, for example, India-Pakistan. Are there any way to monitor the movements of leopards around such a sensitive border? And is there an understanding of sorts between the two countries for exchange of information and collaboration? Which again is really, I think, an interesting question that I've received a lot as well. Talking about how we partner with different governments as well as communities. So I think like GSLEP would be one way to address this. Would you think, Koustubh?
Absolutely, Marissa. So let me put it this way, that the 12 snow leopard range countries, which includes, we can start from Afghanistan, Bhutan, China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Nepal, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Russia. Did I mention China? I think China with the largest snow leopard population. These 12 countries not only come together, but take unanimous decisions regarding snow leopard conservation on the GSLEP platform. And that's what makes the GSLEP platform unique and a very powerful one, because it's one of those platforms which has allowed conversation about conversation about snow leopard conservation, transcending across international borders. If you go to the GSLEP website, you will see there are priority landscapes that countries have identified to be secured under the program. And almost all of them, I wouldn't say 100%, but a majority of those landscapes are they're adjacent to the international borders, and there is another landscape from the other side of the country. So the whole idea of the GSLEP program is to facilitate conversations, information sharing, and knowledge sharing between between two countries which might be completely sovereign, might have different policies or different means and methods of conserving a species. But yeah, that's where the power and the strength of the GSLEP program comes to the fore.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, it's amazing. And they do have, which we'll link below after this, but there is a GSLEP website as well that has a ton of wonderful information. So we can link to that for people who want to learn more afterwards. Let's see. Talked a little bit about numbers. Let's see, a little light regarding poaching of snow leopards and how can we protect them. I guess what are some of, we talked a little bit about this last time as well, but kind of what would you say maybe some of the main threats to snow leopards are, and what this technology is helping to address with those threats?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, the threats to snow leopards can be classified into a few categories. One of them is poaching, and poaching can be further categorized into two slightly overlapping factors. Poaching as a retaliation by herders who lose their livelihood to a snow leopard or other predators, and also poaching for fueling or for kind of supplying to illegal wildlife trade. Both of these remain big threats. Other threats include habitat destruction due to poorly planned infrastructure, and loss of prey due to competition with livestock and so on. So there are several other threats that species faces as well. But as far as the snow leopard, as far as poaching is concerned, I think the communities and the rangers who are at the front line are uh, the means, are those who can help conserve the species. And most, if not all, our programs work very closely with the people on the front lines, whether it's the communities who share their spaces with snow leopards, or whether it's the rangers who are at the helm trying to protect these treasures of their countries.
Yeah. And that's similar. I know Chris Green was saying, how do we get local people involved, particularly when their livelihood is threatened? And so I think this speaks a lot to our also community-based conservation programs that we have in the range countries that we work. For instance, in Mongolia, we have a snow leopard enterprise income generation program where communities are making handicrafts out of the wool from their domestic livestock, which helps bring income into that community and helps offset some of that depredation. So the one thing I would say about the Snow Leopard Trust too is that we don't have really one program that fits all. It's really getting in, like listening to needs of communities, figuring out what those threats are, and then addressing them, from the ground up with the community's involvement every step of the way. So it looks very different in each community and in each country, right? Depending on what the needs are in each country, and then even further into each community. And see, I'm curious too about, our long-term ecological study in Mongolia. How did we pick that site? Why the South Gobi of Mongolia?
So to begin with, it had snow leopards, right? Not to say that other areas didn't have snow leopards, but I think there were various factors. A, we had a long-term presence in that area. B, the government of Mongolia was very keen to engage with and support a study such as this one. C, it's one of those areas where historically a lot of work had been done on snow leopards. Some camera trapping work was done many years ago there by international as well as national scientists. So a bit of a background information from that area allowed us to be able to evaluate what we will be able to do. And I think one of the key factors which we needed to really weigh in was, are there snow leopards? Are there enough snow leopards for us to last a study for at least 10 and at the most maybe a few decades? And that site did check on these basic criteria that we used to identify one of those locations. But yes, support from the government has been phenomenal and phenomenally important and valuable in allowing us to be able to run what is today the only long-term ecological study on snow leopards going on with nearly 11 years of data on telemetry from more than 35 snow leopards and camera trapping for the same number of years. So it's spectacular, the kind of data we have coming in from this area. And as I mentioned in my presentation, that it's helping us decode some of the mysteries which are very important for conservation of the species, not just in Gobi, but across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too, as a little aside, I started at the Snow Leopard Trust right after college in 2004. And I remember even at that time, we had maybe 2 or 3 pictures of wild snow leopards that we used on every publication that we could. So every annual report, every, newsletter, article, like anything had these like 3 kind of telephoto lensed actually photographs that we use. And now, we have this database of thousands and thousands. So that's just in the course of, 10 years 10 plus years, a little bit, how much has really advanced and changed, and how it allows us to study more and then also use just for publications and to get more interest to snow leopards. So it's amazing the amount of data that has come out, thanks to all the scientists and your support getting those cameras out in the field. So let's see, has there ever been an incident where a snow leopard has attacked a human? I actually do get this question a lot as well.
So there are a couple of instances, yes, but all these instances are where a snow leopard was cornered and the attack was more like a fight or flight response. Really, I mean, a lot of us have been very fortunate to have had very close encounters in the wild, and the first reaction, at least in most cases from the snow leopard, has been A, how did you get so close without me noticing you? B, turn around, just get as far as possible from you. So that's typically how a snow leopard responds to human presence.
And I've gotten a lot. I'll just take another question, but a lot of people are asking what they can do to help. And so I know we'll talk about a little bit later as well, but just being here today, like sharing these live talks, it's really encouraging for me, like just seeing all of these comments come in from across the world, like what, again, bringing us all together, like just from my little guest room here, surrounded by laundry, and I can hear my kids making a bunch of noise out there. I hope you cannot, but we're all in this like together and in this collective, fight for conservation. And I just appreciate the breadth of that. And so I think helping, just to spread the word about snow leopards, signing up for our e-news as well, liking things on our different pages and sharing them with people is hugely powerful. So thank you for everybody too for offering your help and assistance, because we would not be here without you either. So yeah,
so I'll just like to add, and this is something which we often say is snow leopards cannot vote, right? But you and I can. And whether you're in the United States of America, where there are no wild snow leopards, or whether you're in a country like Bhutan, which has snow leopards, humans who care about snow leopards are the representatives of snow leopards. So the more you know, the more you talk, the more you keep snow leopard conservation, and not just snow leopard conservation, wildlife conservation on the forefront, the more policymakers will be willing to care for it. And I think it's really important that we have begun to realize over the last few years that wildlife conservation, environmental conservation issues are not what you can do in your free time. These are important for not just our existence, but our economies as well. So I think to be able to make those connections and become the representative of a snow leopard which cannot vote, I think that's one of the most crucial things each of you who's here can do without really spending a lot of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Koustubh. I think we'll go ahead now since we're getting close to that mark. Again, thank you so much for your wonderful questions. We will follow up on this thread. If I missed one, we'll follow up individually. Also, feel free to send any question to social@snowleopard.org. We'll link it below. And I think Koustubh had one last activity for us to do as well.
Okay, so yeah. I'm going to share the screen with you all one more time. And this is again a picture from, by the way, I must mention that most of the pictures that I had in my little PowerPoint, my presentation, they're taken by wonderful friends of the Snow Leopard Trust who have been gracious enough, kind enough to have shared those. Sagar, you being one. So I'm sharing another very interesting picture. I'm not asking whether there is a snow leopard there or not. I'm going to ask how many are there. And let me see if I can share it easily. Okay. All right, I'm going to, let's see if I can change it. So Marissa, I'm hiding us for a few seconds. Okay. So this picture is taken by a dear friend and a student who spent considerable time. If you can just point and just take a couple of minutes, tell us how many snow leopards are there. And big shout out to Akash for taking this picture and letting us share. It's just one of those pictures which shows the beauty and the magic of a snow leopard in being invisible despite being in front of you. And here it's not just one, but a few. So can any of you see them? Okay. Malavika Madhavan, she says 3. Jenna says 7. You love snow leopards, Jenna, don't you? Shaz says 2. Sherry says 4. Bonnie 3. Aditya 2. Okay, let me spill the beans. Some Cheryl says 2. Elizabeth. Do you mean 4, Elizabeth? I think you, or dollars? Yeah. There might be rocks though. Okay, so let me. I know, Muna. I'm with you. I have missed seeing a snow leopard when it was right in front of me. We knew it because it was wearing a collar, and I spent like 3 hours trying to find where it was, and I couldn't. So I'm with you on that. Sorry, Marissa. Oops. There we are. Okay, so yes, people who are saying 3, you're right. As I said, big shout out to Akash for taking this picture in Spiti in India. But yeah, thank you. And you can zoom into the picture and see there's a mother and 2 cubs. Well, the mother is up on the cliff, and the cubs are slightly down in the down the cliff. Great, thank you. I can actually share. Wait, Marissa. I think I should be able to share it here. Okay. I'm just gonna. There. Some of you should be able to see, but that's where the 3 snow leopards are. Oh, Muzaffar, you say 4, 5. Well, you're in love with snow leopards. I can see that. You see more of what you're in love with, right?
Exactly.
Lovely.
I love that. Yeah, it's, too.
Elizabeth, I'm gonna. Sorry, go ahead, Marissa.
Go ahead. No. You go.
Venki, you're not gonna get any more prizes. You've seen a snow leopard in the wild yourself, so you and I have this go on all the time.
I was just going to say that is one slide too that we have on some presentations is, how do you study something that you never see, right? And that is, I think you've given such a great overview of how we have to be really creative and use technology and try to uncover some of those mysteries without being able just to go out and look across the plain and count 15 and study that population directly. So like you said, these are our eyes in the wild. And giving us such great insight. So thank you very, very much for your time today, Koustubh. It was so fun to get to spend time together with all these wonderful people.
And thank you everyone for all the questions. As Marissa said, some of these we may have missed answering because it was like coming in quickly. But yes, we'll do our best to respond to them individually.
Yes. Absolutely. And then, Koustubh, are there other things on our website that people can go to?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Of course.
As
So
we're
by the way, some of you, we spoke a lot about camera traps, and there is a nice little activity. Unfortunately, this is how it prints, but yeah. So it gets into these long. Okay, I can show it from a distance. Yeah, but essentially there is a little. Where is it? There is a comic strip which is about how we count snow leopards using camera traps, and there is a little activity for kids. And yeah, we have a 5-year-old who insisted on making a camera trap of her own, which has a little window. But what's really special is that inside there is a little robot which takes real pictures like a camera trap. So I think I'll soon share some of the pictures that we have of her wearing a snow leopard hoodie and trying to walk like a snow leopard. But yeah, that's the kind of a camera trap you can have at your home and set it up at various places.
I love that so much. And I have to say too that Koustubh actually illustrated those comic strips that you'll see. So a man of many talents. It's wonderful. It's such a fun activity. I did it with my kiddos as well, and they absolutely loved it. So I love that.
Great.
Yeah, so all of that can be found on our website, snowleopard.org /learn. I'm seeing some other questions. I know for those that we didn't get to, I promise we'll go. We're really good about getting back and answering as many as we can. So definitely expect an answer, reply in the comments. And if you're not seeing that, please send us an email at social.snowleopard.org because we want to answer all of it and get to the bottom of all of your questions. It's important. So we just thank you so much for your time. Thank all of you for your time, and keep roaring for snow leopards. And very happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.